Hey, I have not had a chance. I haven't had a chance to check how I look yet, uh, which I really should have just done. It's not like it wasn't possible. Um, but you should be able to hear and see me now. Um, so we're gonna get started. I think I could go with things being a little lower, but there we go. Looks good. Okay, so yeah, it's been a while since the last stream. It just kind of ended up that the series was going to be on break again, and I said, well, I'm going to wait just a little long before doing the stream this time, because I wanted to do some other stuff. I did a stream a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago at this point, where I streamed some games, which I'm probably going to do again, maybe after this. I'm going to stream more of that Five Nights at Freddy's game, which I've not played since I streamed it the first time. So let me check the stream on YouTube real quick before we start reading. I've been busy pop culture-wise. Been seeing a lot of movies, one battle after another. I watched Bring Her Back last night. Those were both very good. And my ranked list is in a good place right now. I'm pleased to say my top 10. You know what I mean? It's looking good. I'm happy with it. They're all good movies. Where is my actual? Here it is. Good. Yeah. Stream seems great. Okay. And yeah, I don't know. I've been watching Gen V. I watched Alien Earth, which I enjoyed quite a lot. The ending was controversial. I still generally liked it. Peacemaker Season 2 is ending next week. I'm excited for that. And they finally released Baki the Grappler in English. I'm not sure if it has ever been released from the beginning, and I figured this would be a good time to jump in. So I'm starting that series from the start. I have not read it before. I'm almost done with the first double volume they released. It's a pretty quick read. And I'll have to wait like a month or two for the next one. That's an interesting series so far. So we have Zatch 2 Chapter 34 this month, or really last month. There is no chapter this month. So it is almost maybe about a week until the chapter would have released. This charger. And then we got another month, and then we'll get 35. But I think in between all that, we will get the cover for is it volume 6, right? I think. So that's exciting. But we are going to get started with the read-through. So Zatch and Kyo were in the middle of defending Cuffy and Ellaby from these two attackers. One of whom is like a big cryptid, the other of whom is this old man with these buzzsaw weapons. And they both have these sort of devices on them that like make it easier for them to cast spells, basically. So they're dodging these buzzsaws. But this guy is pretty deft with them. He kind of swoops them around to try to get Kyo and Zatch again. Zatch brings the Wibarero Zakir discs and uses them more as shields than for their intended purpose, which causes them to shatter in this case. So that's unfortunate. But then Zatch jumps at the enemy. I think Kyo is riding on his mantle like he used to do at the end of the original series. We have to aim for his weak spot, which is, I guess, kind of inside that device. Pretty clear where it is, at least, unlike some of the other enemies. Gigagi Doruk, Babajangu! Which this seems actually like the cryptid guy is casting this, which I'm not entirely sure how he's talking. But Kyo looks to the side and sees this massive thing heading for Cuffy and Ellaby. Looks a little bit like Libra from the last fight. We see this cryptid thing's legs on the bottom, but it seems like its entire body has turned into this large mouth with a ton of teeth and an eye in the middle. This looks like it could be related to one of Ryu's spells, or maybe one of Jesus' spells from the Gaiden, which the old man spells, if you'll remember, kind of sounded like that guy's spells, but they didn't look like them. So Zatch and Kyo use the repulsion on this guy's weapons, and then... Oh, they're not using it on this guy's weapon. I think they're using it to throw themselves backwards, and that guy as well. I guess it just kind of throws everyone backwards. And as they fly backwards, they cast a shield. And it's close enough that they can cast it in front of the monster. And it does a pretty good job at blocking him. Well, well. So those discs disappear when he brings out that shield, eh? Sorry. Hold strong. Send it back. But unfortunately, as always with the shield, things don't go quite as well as we want. And the shield shatters. But it does seem to largely dissipate the spell that was being cast. So that's good, I guess. The creature's arm comes through the shield, being electrocuted, almost gets to Cuffy, but Zatch lands, and he stops the arm with a mighty shout. This is a cool panel. He doesn't, all the fingers go around him, because the hand is so big. Gash! Set! Zagirga! Shoot this monster right in the face. Seemed to hurt him quite a bit. It's bleeding. Its mouth is bleeding. Repulsion! So now they have all 4 discs back. And they use this to throw the monster back, which with 4 discs seems very powerful, obviously. Ha! You opted to protect him, when a prime opportunity to land a crippling blow was dangling right in front of you. I guess a crippling blow on the enemy. I don't think I've ever met a pair of bigger imbeciles. Cuffy, how much longer until her soul finishes the transfer? It's so close to being done, but there's a stubborn knot that just won't come out. The movie I just watched, Bring Her Back, was about spoilers. In a sense, spoilers, yeah. Someone trying to kind of do this in a different way. Even so, you'll get it out no matter what, won't you? Yeah, of course I will. I'm gonna save Ellaby no matter what it takes. If anyone's in the chat, I cannot see that. But it says concurrent viewers 1, so I think there's no one watching just yet. I'll defend you both until the very end. I promise you that. Classic Zatch moment. So you just concentrate on rescuing Ellaby. And Cuffy is moved to tears by this. And maybe by all the general stress, but he wipes the tears. Cuffy, do you think we can move the 2 Ellabys? If we can just get them to Apollo's car, I can drive us all to safety. Apollo's on his way, guys. He's involved in the fight. That vehicle is heading right for them. I've had enough of their meddling for one day. Gigano Berido! Danhedo! Apollo! Something's coming this way? Something weird. It comes out of a portal, which that might be the Danhedo. It just drops a guillotine blade. Cuts the car right in half. Sort of funny looking in a way. Reminds you of something from Freku's other series, Vector Ball, that you might see there. And that obviously is going to stop the car, but Apollo is probably unharmed. No! What? What was that loud noise? Jill, you're awake now? No, she is. What's that? An enemy? Kyo and Zatch are very busy still fighting these 2. And they can cast Zakaraga at the same time, and Zakar, as we've seen, at the same time as Weeber or Zakara, but not Rashiel, which is interesting. Yes, and they're way too strong. Gash and Kiyomaru can't beat them on their own. Please, let's fight together and help them out. I know that our spells are practically useless in this situation. The ability to make and control dolls can come in handy for tricking the opponent or setting up traps. But it doesn't mean anything in a contest of brute force. That's the whole reason we lost the battle to decide the king so early on. And so we gotta look at young Jilnaz and young Luna. Luna's crying. Jilnaz looks kind of the same, but she has a kid version of her outfit. And they have this doll with this dog that have both fallen, and the book is burning. They're fighting Momoto, who looks like he kind of has drills for hands, which there was some discussion on the server as to who this is. There is a drill guy Momoto in the spread at the end, where you see all the Momoto from the battle, except for Jilnaz, apparently. Uh, and so it could be that guy. And there was also some discussion on if his name might be Snail, which had previously been possibly been misattributed to another Momoto, but that's kind of unconfirmed. But despite all of that, I still want to defeat them. I want to do everything in my power to help Cuffy and Ellaby. You got it. Luna, I need you to listen carefully. After all, I assume you're still not familiar with Miracopus Nova and Miracopus Aruterigo, right? I gained those two spells sometime after the battle decided to decide the king wrapped up. Yeah, the discussion on the spell names. I mentioned last time Aruterigo is obviously alter ego. The prevailing logic on the other word in these spells, Miracopus, is that it's supposed to be mirror corpse, which is kind of neat, if that's true. But it sure wasn't easy. It required some special training and a lot of hard work. I was taught how to call upon the special power that only my clan possesses. So, this is kind of interesting, because I think this is possibly the first time that we have confirmed that Momoto can learn new spells after the battle. I think there may have been some instances of them. I don't know, because there's discussion on, like, well, they were a strong Momoto in the demon world, or they had powerful magic, or, like, I need to train my magic. Obviously, we saw Xeno training. But I don't know if there was any specific thing about unlocking spells, if we were just kind of using the magic in a general sense, or what exactly that meant. But, so we don't necessarily know if she's just saying it was difficult to unlock these two spells in particular, or if it's difficult for any Momoto to unlock a spell post-battle, but it did seem interesting to me. So the discs are being attacked again. Gagano Dawaza! Not Gigano, but apparently Gagano, which creates these mouths on that seem to extend the cryptid guy's hands a lot, and also create these mouths on them that bite into things. And he's do pretty good against Weebarare Zakare, and get Zatch and Kyo pretty well as well. Fa-ha-ha-ha. Those discs may be a real pain, but getting rid of them is a cinch if you crush them to bits. So yeah, don't aim at Zatch and Kyo, just attack the discs. Damn it, what's our next move? That old guy and that beast are ridiculously strong. How can we make up for the difference in power? Don't you see how your condition grows worse with each passing second? Can't you feel those gaping wounds and your life ebbing away? So they don't really have, their lives aren't ebbing away. It didn't hurt him that much, guy. You wouldn't be knocking on death's door right now if you wised up and abandoned Cuffy and those other brats when you had that chance. Razuhado Bidun! So finally we get to see him kind of use, I guess, the evolution of the previous spell. We did see him use another spell previously with the guillotine. But these are pretty neat. There are these floating hammer mace things that are on chains that are attached to these balls that are like fused in his hands, like the silly putty is fused into my hand. And then they just have these little other counterweights, I guess, at the end. Pretty neat looking, very cool kind of panel. Hold it right there, old man. You wouldn't want to miss out on a chance to see the cute and lovely Jilnose dazzle the crowd with her magic, would you? So that, to me, clues us in on a little bit of, like, what Jilnose is supposed to be, which is, like, the beautiful assistant in a magic show. I think that's the general vibe of her outfit. Maybe with a little magical girl in there, but I think, that was the only guess people had previously as well. She's some kind of magical girl like Sailor Moon, but she didn't really look like that. And so I think that is what the deal is. She's like the beautiful assistant, but she's doing the magic herself. Sorry to keep you waiting, my king. Luna, Miracapus alter ego. I actually said it, but I'm just gonna let it go with that. So she holds her hands up like this, and these two hearts shine, and they create this different body than the kind of dummy type one we saw previously that is working on Ellaby right now. And it is weird. It's got all these dots and joints with a kind of core in it, and then the face is made of looks like kind of a different material with a grid on it. Jill Nose puts these goggles on. Target. She's one finger out and then two fingers out. Gash Bell. So she's scanning Zatch. On the right side is a regular image of him. On the left side we have this sort of grid version. Of course, the enemies just have to wait while this happens, as is the rule for shonen manga. And then she just kind of does, I don't know if what she's doing here. She's kind of blowing a kiss or some kind of pose, I guess, to complete the spell. Option. I don't know. I don't think anyone's actually saying this. This is just something we're kind of seeing in the background, as that's what this is. A clone of Zatch has been created, which I suppose is called the Option. Very strange English word. The speculation on this is that this is an inspiration. I don't know what you would call it, because Raiku's references are often so bizarre that you don't really know how he intends for them to be seen. Where he kind of directly just lifts things. But in any case, Option was what helper spaceships were called in, I think it was either Galaxian or Galaga, one of the early Namco space, or maybe was it Atari that did Galaga? I don't remember. I think it was Namco, space shooter games. And so that's the theory for this word being used to as the name for the clone. And I try my best to replicate the pose in the thumbnail for this stream. I think I did an okay job, and I had to find an app where I could combine two pictures like that. I'm glad I did. I think it turned out pretty well. So yeah, we see Zatch and the cooler Zatch, not really, which has these grid eyes. So clearly that doll has turned into this, standing in front of their respective teams, and Cuffy and the two Ellabys as well. What? Even the monster is surprised. Gosh, is that what I think it is? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you know exactly what that is, Kiyomaru. So Zatch has been around the block. He seems to kind of know a little about this. Seriously? Could that even be possible? Ha! Even if you can make some carbon copy of yourself, how do you expect it to save you from this? So he's bringing in those weapons, and the cryptid is attacking at the same time. Kiyomaru, try to learn as we go. I'll explain the details of the spell throughout the battle, but first we have to attack. Okay, Zakaruga! So Luna is surprised to see her spellbook shining at the same time as Kiyo's. And yes, both of these Zatches cast Zakaruga at the same time. One for each enemy. Kiyo's pretty happy to see this. I hadn't considered that. Hits both the enemies, pushing him back. It's able to launch his spells? Spells that were conjured up by the real Gash? But how can that be? So he sends the weapons out again, crashing. The clone Zatch even jumps at the same time as the real Zatch. The Option alter ego always follows a few steps behind me and mimics my every move. I see. Gash, Zakir! The old Zakir smokescreen. I believe they've used this or something similar at least once in this series already, in the battle with Wig and Gil, shooting Zakir at the ground. Did they deliberately kick up sand with their attack? It was all to create a makeshift smokescreen? Can you make Option respond to different commands instead of just copying your moves? Yes, I can. But when I'm moving around, I can't always control how Option will react. It's sort of like I have to stay still and focus on Option at certain moments. That's when I'd be able to control what it does. So to make it not just copy him. Can we make you an option? Cast a different spell separately? No. It's completely up to you whether we cast spells together or at different times. Obviously not different spells at the same time. That would not be possible. Good. All right, Gash, here's the plan. What's the point of this little dust cloud of yours? Did you think you'd be able to execute simultaneous attacks from our blind spots with your clone? But you'll abandon that little ploy real quick once Cuffy and the others are back on the chopping block. Isn't that right, Demon King? Zamus, that's what his name is. This time I want you to decimate Cuffy and everyone else. Obliterate the king and all the others who stand in our way. Unleash your ultimate spell. Dyoga. Exactly. If you can't see us, then you'll just fall back into that same pattern of targeting Cuffy and the rest of the group. This is a kind of a dumb plan. Like, you still have blind spots while you're attacking. Like, I don't know. The heroes don't have to wait for you to attack. You only have to wait for the heroes to attack in a shonen manga. Don't you know the rules by now? Exactly. If you can't see us, then you'll just fall back into that same pattern of targeting Cuffy and the rest of the group. Rashield! So the clone cast Rashield, which these real Zatch and Kyo are on top of and actually use it as a platform to gain altitude. I'm not sure we've ever seen it used this way before. So he's going to use, I think, another Doruk spell. But he crashes into the Rashield. If we predict how the enemy will react, we can use Rashield as a preemptive wall to interrupt their spell before they can cast it. And whichever enemy didn't go on the attack won't be able to see anything through the sandstorm. We'll have the advantage of knowing the enemy's location before they know ours. They soar above the enemies. Zakerga! They're above me? When did that happen? He tries to move the weapons to block the spell, but it fails and it hits him almost right in the weak point. And that was a well-planned strike, even though he missed my core. He still managed to do a number on the arm I used to protect it. Now the clone's in front of him! Mouth opens like a dummy this time, like a real dummy, which Zatch has often been called. Luna's book shines again. Zagerga! This time it's a direct hit on the core. Yeah, the guy's thrown back. Rashield disappears and Zatch and Kyo land on the ground. We have two Zatches triumphant next to each other. Double the fun. You can see their clothes kind of have the same damage that was sustained earlier in the battle. Jill knows. Luna, thanks for the assist. Your spell is the absolute best. You know it. Luna does another pose, taking the glasses off. And that's the end of chapter 34. A very combat-focused chapter. Largely wrapping up this fight, but I have a feeling it's maybe not quite over yet. Zamus is still alive, and I don't know. You know, Belial's always watching. You know what I mean? So the explanation for Zamus's name appears to be the beast's name. This could be spelled several ways, like they say. They just decided to go with Zamus, which omits the U at the end of it, which reminds, if they had the U, it would remind me of Zamas from Dragon Ball, Zamasu. So they translated that as many people would. So thanks as always to Zatch Bell Gamer and friends for the scan. This was a pretty cool chapter. I definitely wanted to see some more fighting, and I'm glad we got that. It's always good in Zatch Bell. The option spell is neat, but I'm not super interested in seeing it just used for Zatch, who, you know, just kind of has attack spells, and it's like, okay, you know, it's neat. Right? It's better than the formula that we've seen of another character coming in to save them. I definitely think that. Jill knows is already there, just having her wake up and use a cool new spell. Yeah, I like that. But I'm really more interested in seeing the clone used for maybe someone else, like Momon or Tio or Conchame, or someone a little more interesting than, you know, the basic attackers of the team. So there was that, but overall I do think it's cool. I am still not really feeling this arc compared to other arcs in this series. Um, but I think as part of the whole series, it'll be fine. It's introducing us to Joe Nose, who I think is going to be a cool character, useful, and Cuffy and Ellaby, who hopefully will also continue on, but we'll see. But yeah, I think next chapter should be pretty cool. I think it might have some kind of twists and turns in there. And we will have to wait and see next month what ends up happening with that. So, this was such an action focused chapter that it is both a very quick read, and also there's not much to discuss in there. A lot of the stuff that I wanted to discuss, I just mentioned during the chapter itself. So that's kind of sort of the end of the stream, which this is a very short stream compared to the others. Not worth the wait. So I don't really know if I should maybe talk about some other stuff in the meanwhile. I usually give like a little One Piece update, so I guess I can do that in terms of what's going on with me in One Piece right now. It's my other great love of manga. I guess in terms of that, One Piece is unfortunately on a break. Apparently because Oda is ill right now, and hopefully it's nothing that bad, and I doubt it is. And I have also been playing Pirate Warriors 4 again, just trying to use some of the DLC characters that I haven't tried yet. But man, that is a difficult game to play after you beat it, because the optional levels get so hard, just the the battles that aren't part of the main story, that you can only use characters you've heavily upgraded for them. And I think like the main appeal of this game is a variety of the characters. That's kind of why I'm in there. That's why I went back to it, is to use these DLC characters, and I can barely use them anywhere because they're super weak. And then if I spend a lot of resources to upgrade one of them, then I just run out of resources completely. And I have to do 1 or 2 battles to get more. So that's been annoying me, and I'm only going to maybe go back to that once or twice before I just wait for Zelda Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, right? Next month, which I'm looking forward to. Because I think that's going to be a bit of a different type of Warriors game from what I've heard about the Age of Calamity game. So that's what's happening with One Piece. We're also kind of building up to season 2 of the live action. They've been sharing stuff every week for the past couple weeks, and what it looks like they're doing is kind of maybe doing a little poster and some shots from each arc of the season every week. And I assume once after we do Drum Island, the next week after that might be the release date reveal, which will, fingers crossed, be January or February. So I'm looking forward to that. That also reminds me, my prediction last month was 8 months until either an English release or a new anime announcement for Zatch Bell. So that is now, I guess, almost 6 months, right? Yeah. It was 1 month until this chapter's release, and then it's been almost a month since then. So yeah, it's within 6 months. I'm holding myself to that. Nothing's probably going to happen if I'm wrong. I'll just be wrong, and that'll be unfortunate. But 6 months and a week about until my prediction window is closed. What else have I been doing? I can talk about Baki. Definitely an interesting series. I do find the art style quite weird. I'm not gonna say downright repulsive, but like some of these guys they're real freaks. They can be very demonic, which is funny because the artist shows that he can draw normal people, and generally the art is very good. Which for a lot of these like really long running manga, at the start of them, the artist is pretty unskilled, like with One Piece or Zatch Bell too. Though Zatch Bell was not that long running. there are a lot of popular manga where it's the mangaka's kind of first big long running series, so you can see their art really develop and change as it goes on. But the artist of Baki, Keisuke Itagaki, is clearly like very skilled even at the start of Baki, and it seems like the only thing that like doesn't really look right is Baki himself, because he looks pretty different in this part I'm reading than what I've seen, which hasn't been much, of pictures of him kind of later on and stuff, which is interesting. But pretty much everything else looks very like fleshed out, very like full as an art style, and it definitely took some getting used to for these like freakish looking people. But you do get used to it pretty well. And looking forward to kind of seeing how it's going to play out. I still wouldn't say if I really like it or not, because you just get looks like one major fight in this first double volume, and then almost the whole second volume is just set up for other stuff, which is good, I think, because especially the whole first volume is just like almost one singular fight already, which is interesting, for a series. I feel like most series don't do that. Have their first volume just be a fight. But after that fight, there should be, some setup for whatever's next. But I do think it's really cool that such a long series is coming out in English from the start in the U.S., which, like I said, I'm not sure it has before. And that's, I guess I can go into that maybe a little bit. Because I very frequently check the Wikipedia rankings for longest manga by volume count, which is really interesting for a few reasons. This could be a video on its own, honestly. It's interesting because I think these ultra long manga, are some of the longest stories we have as humans in our culture. Especially some of the longest stories that are continually written, drawn, supervised by the same person, Comics can't have that claim. They have a bunch of different artists and writers come in and out. These manga, with the exceptions of a few, like the number one Golgo 13, which after the original author died in 2021, continued on and still continues without him, which were his wishes. And I don't really like that those are still considered to be ongoing on the list. But even so, there are plenty of these that have been running since the 80s, early 80s even, that are still going with the same people writing and drawing. Golgo 13 has 218 volumes and started in 1968, which is crazy. And that guy did write it from 1968 to 2021, so that's quite something. Another reason it's interesting is because a lot of the manga on this list are not super well known in the US. Even Golgo 13 is obviously not majorly well known. But of the top 10, of the top 5, let's say, I think it's the most well known. Because the top 5 is Golgo 13. Then there's 2 manga that are not ongoing, which is Dokaben, which is a baseball manga, and Kochikame, the police manga that was sort of the mascot of Jump while that was running, but not known in the US pretty much at all. And I think only recently just got any kind of English version at all, which was the anime was put up subtitled on YouTube, some of it. That was the first time the series in any form had been in English. That was this year. Then there's King of Minami, which is about like a loan shark. And has been going since 1992. And then number 5 is called Cooking Papa, which is, as you might think, about a dad who cooks. So Golgo 13 is the most well-known out of all of those 5. Number 6 is Silver Fang, which also known as Gin, I think. Nagaraboshi Gin, I feel like is the name that I've heard a little more than people calling it Silver Fang. Which is just sort of this story about like different generations of wolves and like dogs or something. That has 154 volumes, and Baki has that many volumes as well. Baki's been going since 1991. And then the rest of the top 10 is Kinnikuman, Hajime no Ippo. So it's kind of interesting that we have Baki, Kinnikuman, Ippo, which are both series about, just in the ring fighting, though I think Kinnikuman is the silliest of the three. And then rounding out the top 10 is Jojo's Bizarre Adventure with 137 volumes. The Golo 13 guy had another manga in here that had 125 volumes, which is also still ongoing. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that people just have. I never heard of them before I checked this list. There's number 15 is a fishing manga. Yeah, there's a bunch of other random stuff in here. One Piece finally shows up at number 21. So honestly, if you ask me, well, how high do you think One Piece is going to get in this? I think it's going to hit 20. I don't think it's going to get higher than that. 20 and 19 are tied, but depending on how fast these release volumes, I think it's unlikely it'll get above. I don't think it's unlikely it'll get above 18, but it's interesting because numbers 14 to 20 are all pretty close in number. One Piece has 112 volumes at 21, and number 14 has 118 volumes. So that's you could say technically only 6 volumes ahead of One Piece. But One Piece takes very frequent breaks, and I think a lot of these manga, which are much simpler stories, probably don't take nearly as many breaks, even the ones that have been running for a long time. With simpler stories, with a lot of the time simpler art styles, like Little Rascal Kobo-chan. You think that's taking a break? Look at this, Charlie Brown over here. And I know it's not showing on the screen, but you can look it up yourself if you want. So One Piece fans will have to be satisfied with it breaking the top 20 longest of all time, which is still a big achievement. There's some interesting cases here, like Captain Tsubasa, which technically ended and is considered on this list to have ended with 110 volumes, bringing it to number 25. Captain Tsubasa is still ongoing in storyboard form. So the author was just like, I'm old, I'm tired, and I'm not going to be able to continue this series in a form that is good enough for it to remain in a magazine, but I'm just going to sketch it and put it up online. And it actually has done 8 volumes of that since it technically ended. So that's kind of interesting. And I think those should count, you know what I mean? You can continue a series in any form if it is still done in chapters. I mean, just like how JoJo transitioned from weekly to monthly, that's considered part of the same series. These weird, sketchy Captain Tsubasa chapters should also be considered part of that series. So you can see why I could do a whole video on this list. I think it's a really interesting list. I'll just link it in the chat here for anyone who wants to see. Unfortunately, it didn't really seem like we got anyone in the chat for this stream, but I hope people come up on it later. Actually, it looks like someone may have just commented on it on the Discord, and not in the YouTube chat itself. So thanks to anyone who is watching. But I think we probably are going to end it there. And I think I'm going to jump from this to streaming more of the Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach DLC. So hopefully I'll have some fun with that, and I will be back, not on YouTube, on Twitch. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you probably have no real way to... You know what? Maybe there's a way, because I can link my Twitch channel before the stream starts, right? So just in case, I'll link my Twitch here as well, and I'm going to be streaming this Five Nights at Freddy's thing pretty soon. We're going to continue that. I probably won't be talking as much because I've been talking this whole stream. So thanks to anyone who did watch. Thanks to anyone who continues to watch after the fact. As always, if anyone leaves any comments, I will respond to the best of my ability. And I am looking forward to the November, my birthday month, chapter of Zatch Bell 2.